So I'm Liz Baxter. I'm the CEO for the North Sound ACH, and I am just thrilled to be joined by some folks from the Communities of Color Coalition who have been partners of ours and on a learning journey, both learning and teaching us. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ben Young. Ben, if we're hoping that folks can hear this and hear some about C3. How you've gotten to where you are and what you're hoping to look at for in the future.
So I'm Ben Young. I'm the Director of Marketing and Grants currently. I started out with C3 back in 2005, but prior to that, C3 came into being because of some cross burnings that were going on in Snohomish County. And it was a protest movement. And there were two groups that came in, and then they combined and made the coalition. They started out with folks like J.J. Frank, Ed Glazer. The list, there is a very large, long list. There were 125 people that originally signed on. And then as protest movements happen, they also wane unless you get organized. And through that organization came the Communities of Color Coalition. And in 2005, Kiniko Nabora-Kawa took over the chair position of the Communities of Color Coalition. And in that, she became that one person show. She did everything. She is just a spirit that the world needs so many more of to lead us, direct us, and guide us. She got my attention and asked me to do one or two things with her, and I said yes. And before I knew it, she had me lock, stock, and barrel. It was, and then in just the same fashion that she was able to get me as a community person to come and be a part of it, C3 created the conference on race, an annual conference on race. And through that, we started broadening our horizons and seeing what we really could do. One of those people that Kiniko grabbed a hold of was David Ortiz. And from that point, I'm really going to leave it to David.
Thank you, Ben. I would just like to speak briefly to the core mission of C3. What makes C3, I believe, unique in the Puget Sound region is that it has the ability to convene and engage various communities through a variety of different settings with the intention of eliminating racism and eliminating other disparities, especially in healthcare and education, and to pivot when necessary to bring in and expand the coalition membership. And I think it's that flexibility, that agility, that's focused on its core mission that's going to keep C3 active for the next 30, 40, 50 years, because it focuses on co-creating, co-sponsoring, and engaging as many like-minded and fair-minded individuals as possible to attack a very large social disparity and to create space and voices through our radio program, through our conferences, and through our monthly meetings where, again, we spark the interest, we create space, and we engage the community. And one of the leaders that's going to help spearhead this effort in the coming years is Jackie. And so I'd like to hand this over to Jackie.
Thank you, David. You didn't, I don't know if you did a formal introduction of yourself, though. If we skipped that part, David Ortiz is our amazing, he's our outgoing chair. And so that has positioned me. I'm Jackie Julian, the Executive Director for Communities of Color Coalition. And just to build off what Ben and David have shared, that is the goal. So as far as like where we're going, like when we think of community, like the question we've asked is, what does community mean to you? And I think we've asked that question a number of times, and collectively it's collaboration. Folks are saying it's collaboration. And so moving forward, the vision for C3 is to take those our core values and beliefs and to implement them. Because as we see, right, the uprising of resistance happening in our community right now, folks aren't going back to normal. Normal is the silent, slow death, right? It's the invisible death that we don't see. It's the disparities. As we know, trauma lives in our body, and we come from generations of trauma. And just in our current situation now, when we think about where we are in time and the effects and how long it's going to take for our kids, what are they going through? What is going to be our response, right? And that's what I lead this effort with moving forward, knowing that we have to disrupt how we see healthcare, our educational practices. I will say, right, in the midst of all this chaos, I strongly believe that we have the ability to wage beauty. I have seen students all week stand up and resist and hold administration and leadership accountable. These students are so powerful. They're calling for, if their demands are not met, they're already mobilizing and organizing, saying, okay, well, if these aren't met, then our demands change to the resignation of X, Y, and Z. And I'm blown away. And so that's what's needed, that we move forward, that building, right, everyone's at a different stage. And so we talk about like equity in itself, we have to acknowledge that that's in our institutions. And so on an earlier conference today, someone had shared something about that the system isn't working. And from my community, we believe the system is working. It's working for white supremacy. Like that's how it was designed. That's how it's structured. So when folks are saying go back to normal, they have to acknowledge that for non-POC kids, they get to thrive in education and healthcare. And for our Black Indigenous POCs, they're struggling to survive, just to survive, right? I can't breathe. I need life. And so for that, it takes a lot of action, right? So we've been using this and encouraging folks. That's the importance of voting. And what does that look like, right? How do we disrupt? How do we invite folks into these conversations, because they are going to be uncomfortable? That is a given. And I don't know if I'm answering the question. I think that I'm still very raw at the end of the week. And just standing in truth and power that we are in this is a moment. It's a movement that is pivotal. It's shifting how we do business. And I think we're seeing a lot of folks get back to their indigenous roots. And so for an organization, like, we value community. Like, we're all valued. We all have needs. And so we have been really successful in moving forward Dr. John Powell's targeted universalism and creating that sense of belonging and helping folks understand like the difference between diversity and inclusion to creating a sense of belonging and painting a picture of what that world looks like. And so, yeah, a lot of learning and a lot of teaching. And that's how we get to growing.
So Jackie, if folks wanted to get in touch with C3, how do they do that?
Yeah, I would say visit us on our socials. I'm going to give you my direct email. It's Jackie, and it's spelled JACQUE at c3coalition.org. You can find us through our website, the communitiesofcolorcoalition.org.
Awesome. And so I got to witness your swearing in of your inaugural board of directors. Can you, any of you, talk about just the significance of that this week?
I would love to. And the reason why I would love to is because I felt that it was the most diverse group or board that I've ever seen anywhere. And if anything, we did I think that we seated a board that we were short in one area. I want to admit that we were short in one area, and Jackie and I are charged to correct that, in that I don't feel that we had enough of the Asian community represented, and it needs to be there on the board. And because we only have, well, we have 8, I do know that we have some room for growth there, and that's what I would hope. But other than that, I love the color of the board.
Mm.
I absolutely love the color of the board.
Yeah, and I want to highlight that feeling of high, like the amazing folks we have on our board, is from the heavy lifting of the 2 men. They're on the bottom of my screen, but Ben and David, and just being in relationship with community. That is the power, like it's demonstrated in our board. The diversity is so. Thank you, fellas. Right? Thank you for the labor and laboring the movement and building something that is revolutionary.
I want to echo what Jackie said. I think what makes this board unique, besides the ethnic makeup and the racial makeup, is the gender. I mean, the fact that I have personally have never seen a board that is as diverse as Ben mentioned, but more importantly, if you look at the gender makeup of the board, that is, in my mind, amazing to have so many women from various ethnic communities represented and an executive board that, again, is functioning through the works of a nonprofit that encompasses from work from Bellingham all the way to Seattle and Olympia and now Yakima. So it's just truly unprecedented, but more importantly, I believe the wave of the future.
David, I think that you're absolutely correct there. But the way that I saw it was, I saw that was normal. To me, that was normal, because in this space that we're operating in, it really is dominated by women leadership. The changes that are being made now, it is through the direction of women leadership. And if that wasn't reflected on our board, then we would have shortchanged ourselves. But I believe that it was just a natural thing that happened. We definitely didn't go after and say we want to dominate the board by women. We wanted to dominate the board, as they say, sometimes in a different way, but as they say, by the best available candidates that were there. And I believe that the best available candidates that applied and applied themselves to it, they won out. They were the cream of the crop.
And I will say this as a kind reminder to you young men, that women have always been at the forefront. We have, when history shows us that we have continued to labor movements on our back. And so here we are today.
Well, and since I am I'll call it of a certain age, the number of boards that I have been on where I have been the only person of color, and folks have told me, oh, like we've recruited, nobody, is available, willing, etc. I think that the piece that you all 3 have mentioned in different ways, it is the power of relationship and trust and community that has also helped build your board. And, I'm just ecstatic. So it is pretty exciting to see something so powerful being built here in this region. And again, at a time when it's just so critically needed. So thank you all for the work that you've put into this. Anything else that you might want folks to know about you before we close up?
I think we've captured it all.
Okay.
I hope.
You know, I've obviously, and I'm sure that you all have as well, you know, in these last couple of weeks here in June of 2020, um, have had many conversations about like what's going on around our country.
Mhm.
And I shared earlier today, you know, this colleague of mine described it as a watershed moment for the country. And my response was, well, only if we do something, because otherwise it's just another rainfall. And you know, the notion that people of color have endured so much oppression that we get used to the massive rainfall, the tsunami, and things not changing once
Mhm.
things go back to some equilibrium. You know, it isn't so much that we carry it alone, but if this country is actually going to change, we need leaders like the types of leaders that you're building within C3, because we're not just the recipients of change, we are the change agents as well. And so I'm just so appreciative of the work you do and the history that has brought you to where you are, and look forward to working with you all as we look forward. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.